This is, I believe, what one is this, by the way? This would be number 5 video. And this one's going to be about collaboration and communication. So this is part of a learning series I'm doing for the Global Virtual Design Sprint to get people oriented towards different things related to communication that they should be aware of. And we'll be going through 2 different dimensions of this. One of them is going to be about event-based communication that is kind of high level on many different levels, using level too many times. And then the second level, the second level is all about team and interpersonal communication. So they'll be basically in 2 buckets. So the first one we're going to make it very general. So I'm going to switch real fast on this desktop, and we're going to start with this. So kind of like the town square of the Global Virtual Design Sprint historically has been Slack. This time around for number 5, that's a very lightweight version of Slack in that it's not doing like we did in 4. If you want a preview of that, you can take a look at the screen. And over here in 4, we made tons of channels for all sorts of different teams, all sorts of different interests, and it became this kind of nightmarish mess of different things that people are trying to keep focused on. So we're going to do things a little differently in 5, and that we're going to keep this fairly lightweight. And again, the analogy is that this is kind of broadcasting to everyone for internal communications and to start conversations about different things. Like I know that we just had an offline conversation about strategy sprints that will come into here. I'm also posting things like the GVDS challenges, ideas and themes mural that's going to be available for the next week or so for people to put in their ideas on what they'd like to kind of submit to other teams to do for challenges and different approaches to simulating the virtual design sprint that we're going to be doing. So this is basically what you consider baseline. Like this is something you should probably check once every 2 days up until October when it starts getting a bit busier. But for now, this is where I'm going to be putting a lot of internal communications to people around what's happening with the event. The next step up from that is something that's external facing, but also sometimes reflects some of the stuff I put in Slack. And this is the Virtual Design Sprint Events group. It's fairly big by big standards. There's other ones that have 10,000 members, but it's been growing for about 2 years. And the idea with this is that it's partially announcements, it's external facing, but it's also to mimic what I may be putting in Mural, but to start conversations around some of the things related to the event that other people who are not part of the event would want to know about. So that's the purpose of this particular Facebook group. I would say the importance of this for people that are participating in the event is low. It's probably something that you will practice with later on when we start teaching people how to use social media effectively. That's going to be part of the GVDS 5 this time around, is being able to utilize social media. But for the most part, it's something that you can pay attention to cursory. If you've got a thing against Facebook where you don't like their privacy stuff, you can stay off of it altogether and instead just concentrate most of your attention on the Slack channel for general communications that are going on. Another thing I like to do is for the people that are just part of this event, I'll send simple emails out that where I don't need to use something like Mailchimp or like a drip or anything like that. I can just basically construct an email and kind of send it out to everyone that summarizes everything they need to know. Like every 3 or 4 or 5 days, I'll send this out. So that's kind of a catch-up email for people that want to kind of just digest something and have everything in there. But for things that are not necessarily GVDS 5 focused and in terms of summaries, then I'll switch over to Mailchimp, which is a pretty easy tool that I use to basically send out the different campaigns and notifications about different stuff. So this is just kind of a historical example, but I only turn to Mailchimp when I have something to communicate about the event that goes beyond just the participants and involves a lot more eyeballs to be paid attention to it than things like call for testimonials, things around GVDS 5 when we were talking about schedules. So people who have been part of the event that want to know more about it. Another resource for just general high level for everyone in the event is the resources page on the GVDS 5 website. Right now it's sparse in terms of the different links that are there, but this is only going to grow. It's going to expand now that I've had a couple of things I was spent to do this week. Next week is just one kind of obligation outside of GVDS to do, and then there's getting teams together, but pretty much it's making a video or two every single day next week and kind of getting everything for preparation and before the sprint done, so that people have that to kind of reference if they need to and start asking questions if they need some guidance. So this is something to pay attention to. This will be a central hub of different documents, templates, links, and so on related to the GVDS. So that's kind of where we are with like just general I would say general high-level communications that are going to come from me that you should pay attention to for the event. Now, in terms of the team, there's been some trends that have been happening that I recommend. One of them is working with WhatsApp. So WhatsApp you can use on a desktop or your mobile phone, but it's really easy to just gather everyone's phone numbers and kind of put them into one particular central point, like some essential application where you can get in contact with people fairly quickly. In some ways it's better than Slack in that it's much more mobile. You don't have to kind of fight with the interface. And for when you form your team of 4 to 6 people, if you have it right there on your phone to communicate with one another on the fly, it's good for quick syncs and other things of that nature. And also, another great tool that people sometimes don't think of or utilize is email. If you want to do the same kind of team summaries, especially if you're a facilitator and you want to do something like this, where it has everything related to what you're doing on the team and you want to put it there, that's a perfect way for people to digest on their own time offline, rather than using something like Slack, where after so many messages, it's going to go into the ether and you'll lose it all. Plus, this has a better kind of, essentially you can reflect on it and recall it when you need to do so. Mural is something where we're partnering with this company Mural to do a lot of our templates, a lot of our process. So we did a little bit of an introduction in the networking events on Friday, but this will be probably something that we'll be utilizing more and more. I am aware of other options like Teams and Miro, and they're fine options, but if you want to get a little bit more versed in this particular whiteboarding tool, this is what I recommend. But again, if the team says, no, we love Miro instead, then you can go in that direction too. But all of the templates for the GVDS will be basically put into this particular program. And then finally, there's 2 options in terms of getting together in person, meaning like through video. And I will say one thing also, that Mural with their new interface, if you become a member of this workspace that I own, you'll have access to being able to use like a phone system on here where basically it's not showing, but if more people are here, there's a little phone icon that you can use where you can actually place voice calls within Mural, and you don't have to have an external call to another application like Zoom, for example. But Zoom is something I have an account with. I can do webinars as well as like meetings. These are all the different ones that are coming up for next week. This is the one I'm doing now. So most at least 1 or 2 people on the call will probably have Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting, but I usually default to Zoom because the technology has held up for so long and there's really been no issues with it. If you do want a good alternative, Google Meet is pretty good. It does have problems with its tech or its bandwidth sometimes. You'll get these weird kind of echoes that suddenly form loops for whatever reason, because maybe people have their microphones on. But it's very easy to integrate within Gmail. A lot of virtual design sprint teams in the past have tried Google Meet when they didn't have Zoom as an option. And it fits all the bills. Plus, the premium version is available for everyone to use, which couldn't be at a better time, because now you can basically almost have the same exact kind of functionality that Zoom is featuring, but now you have it within a free version in Google. So it's totally up to you. It could be a team conversation, but there are those 2 options that usually work really well historically. Now, in terms of options, the last thing I'll cover are some tools and resources that you can use as a team to store documents, keep your communication kind of at a hub. Periodically I've seen people use Basecamp Personal, where you can start your own project as a facilitator or a team member, put all sorts of to-dos and deadlines and kind of goals that you want to do for your sprint and align them in this project. It works fairly well. Some people don't like the kind of the ticky-tacky version of it, meaning that you have to do a lot of clicking and a lot of setting in order to be able to get what you want. But that's the nature of most of these. The same thing with Notion. Notion is kind of a different, cleaner approach than Basecamp does, with everything left justified, and you can try different things. But again, it's personal taste. These are just options that you can use to kind of keep files where in one spot, kind of communicate with one another. By the way, that's something that's good also with Mural. If you want to use Mural as a way of kind of keeping all your documents in one space, you can cut and paste URLs or just basically import documents into this whiteboard, and it can be a repository for you in that regard. Trello is another popular option for some teams where if they want a stepped process and with what they want to do with their team in terms of like a Kanban board or something that kind of regulates the work effort, this is a pretty good option to choose. And then finally, there's Cuckoo.Team. This has been used by some teams who want to keep the work time in sort of a regulated manner. So it's really easy. You just put any kind of like session name, like I'll call it Bagel Bites, and I'll move it forward. And then I'll call myself Tim Cuckoo. And then you give yourself a work time. So let's say 55 minutes. And then people can choose this particular or join this particular Cuckoo that I have here. And this will allow people to join in and work as you can do deep work with this so that everyone's working on deep stuff, but they're not necessarily being distracted. This is a good way of kind of connecting everyone on the same page and how long they're going to work and when do they quit. But it also gives a foundation for reaching out through either Slack or through WhatsApp to kind of communicate with someone else about something that's going on. So Cuckoo.Team is kind of a neat little option. But that's about it. That's really summarizing both the high-level communication options that I'm going to be using throughout the next few weeks, and the personal team options for communication and collaboration that I went through. All of this is linked into the YouTube video, so if you wanted to kind of make reference to it, that's all there. I just didn't link to the actual products, but you can pretty much figure out where they go if you just did a couple of Google searches to kind of look for those. I will say, again, since I'm part of Mural, I have the ability to add people to the workspace if they're facilitators or co-facilitators, want to create their own boards or they're kind of their own design. That is an option, but you just have to let me know if you'd like to go ahead and do that. Okay, so if you have any questions, post up in the video or reach out to me direct, either on Slack or an email. I'm not shy about answering questions or helping people out, but hopefully this was helpful. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you later. All right.